Hello guys, this will be the second video of my tutorial on how to simulate flow through a rocket nozzle using OpenFOAM. And this video will be focused mainly around creating a structured quad mesh as the one shown here of an aerospike nozzle. So first, why is a mesh even important for CFD analysis? Well, it is important because the whole point of CFD is that we are applying these partial differential equations to each cell of a mesh in order to create a generalized solution. As described in Daniel P. Raymer's Aircraft Conceptual Design, the 5th edition, when describing creation of a mesh for an airplane, he said that it begins at the outside boundaries as a simple brick-like shape and transitions to the aircraft surface in a smooth and structured fashion. While this makes it easier for a human to create a reasonable grid, it is actually easier for an automated computer routine to create a grid that does not look like a brick wall with an aircraft-shaped hole in the center. Essentially what he is saying is that it is very easy for a computer to create an unstructured mesh, and an unstructured mesh will be something that is just randomly generated, and these cells can be vastly different, and that is something we don't want because you see CFD is very sensitive to this size and shape of these individual cells. Additionally, with a structured mesh, although we will have to put our own effort in order to make it structured, will result in much less memory consumption and therefore a faster running and more accurate simulation. So as you can see here, I've opened up my ANSYS workbench and I'm using the student edition. Since most of you who are probably students will also be using this, I think it is best to use this edition. So we start by going under component systems, scrolling a bit down to see the mesh, create this mesh system. Now we can import our geometry. And that, what I just imported was the SolidWorks Parasolid that we made in the last video. Now we can just double click this mesh. And you can see it right here, it says starting meshing. And this takes a while. Okay, so now we can see that it's finally opened. And let's get this flat and look closely. We press this and then press generate. Now clearly this is a terrible unstructured mesh, and in order to make it like an actual structured mesh, we can use a Facemeshing. And so we can try that right now. But first, we need to actually set the sizing for each edge. So click on sizing. Now let's select an edge and apply. Now we're going to use number of divisions, and I'll set this to 20. And we want the behavior to be hard. And now let's set a few more sizings. And if you want to select multiple faces, you could just hold down Control. So I'm going to do that right now. So now I have 2 selected. Let's say I want this to be probably like 70. Now let's say this also you want to be like maybe 100. And then finally we just need to apply the sides. Let's make that like 200. Now let's apply Facemeshing. And this is a pretty simple geometry as it is right now, so hopefully this Facemeshing will already work. So let's press generate. And yeah, we can clearly see we have the Facemeshing method has worked properly since this is a relatively simple geometry, and you can see that we have a perfectly structured mesh. And let's say that I think these cells are too long and they could be finer. I could always just set one of the sizing for those two walls to be more fine. So let's say 300 or something like that. Generate it again. You can clearly see it's much more fine now. So yeah, that looks good. And just in case you guys are wondering, I'll also right now show you how to mesh a more complex design. So now we can like try to do a more complex meshing. So let me import a geometry of some much more complicated 2D design. Okay, so now we have this loaded in. You can see that this is kind of more weird geometry. There are actual like curves and some straight lines. And if you want some backstory, this is just for my science fair. This is an hybrid of an arrow spike and a bell nozzle that I just wanted to see its plume. So first of all, many of you will be like, oh, let's just use face meshing right away. So let's just try that right now. We can apply our face mesh. We can do our sizings. Now we can click generate. And we can see this error. One or more faces with map mesh controls fail to map mesh or whatever. And basically, we need to fix this by splitting this up. So here's what we can do. We can go back to ANSYS Workbench and click on Geometry, right click it, and it says Edit Geometry in Design Modeler, and click that. Now it says Starting Design Modeler. So now that Design Modeler has opened, we can just press Import 1 and generate that. Now we can clearly see we have our import right here. This is the same geometry, and essentially what we want to do is we want to split this up into things that we can actually mesh easily. And to do that, we can first start by maybe cutting a line right here, since as you can see this thing will split into two branches, and that's probably going to be hard for the face meshing thing to actually face mesh. So we'll make a cut here, and then past that point we have two branches, and those will be fine because it's all like continuous. So then after that we can just maybe make a cut here. So what we do is you just go to sketching, and let's go all the way down to construction point. Now we just need to roughly see where this line is going to be. This looks good. Now we go back to, okay, so now we do the other ones. We want one here, one here, and yeah, I think that looks good. Maybe, and we don't need to make a cut here with the construction point because we can just use these vertices, so we don't need to actually create a construction point there. Now let's go to modeling, tools, face split, target face, select this, tool geometry, hold control down, select that construction point, select this vertex, select the next construction point, apply, generate, and just repeat the process. See, these are the vertices you can just use here, apply. And this will go pretty quickly once you are more experienced. Again, remember to hold down control so you can select multiple points. Apply. And now if we go on to the select face tool, we can see we have this big face here, this, we have this, these two branches, and this input thing. So now we can go back to mesh and press update. let's see what happened. One or more objects probably failed to update, because obviously now we have broken this whole face into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts. So let's just delete this face meshing. This edge sizing, you delete it. Delete this one too. So this is what we have right now. Let's start with the input. Go to sizing, select the edge. Let's make this 20. Let's make it easier for this face meshing to work by making the cells like relatively big, since this is a tutorial. In reality, you would probably set this to 30, maybe even 40, and make a much finer mesh. But again, this is just a tutorial. And now, since we already defined this as having 20, it's automatically gonna know that this whole line is 20, so it's gonna split 10 here and 10 here, so that's fine. Let's not worry about like the sizing of these things right now. Let's just get to these faces. Set this to 70. And now remember that this wall here is split into two now, so we need to create two different sizings. Let's zoom in so it's easier to select. Set this as maybe 20 again, because this is a pretty crucial point. This is right when the outflow is going to reach our environment, so probably want a slightly denser mesh here. Now finally we can do these. And let's set this to 200. Okay. This all looks good right now, so we could start by face meshing maybe this only. Let's just check if it works. You can see that it has created a structured mesh. So let's add more faces. Hopefully this will work. Generate. And when you look at that, we have almost perfectly structured mesh. And you can see that these cells are much longer than the others. So that's actually a result of us not applying our sizings to these edges right here. So of course we could just do that right now. You just select these edges, and let's say that we just want it to be like maybe 50 or 60. And I think we need to do the sizings for the inside as well. So let's actually do that as well. Or we don't need a new sizing, we can just use the old one. Yeah. There, see? So of course you can just play around with this and get your desired mesh density. We've created a pretty good structured mesh from a decently complex geometry. So you could just apply these steps to any complex geometry and you should be able to get a pretty good structured mesh. It just takes some time, and you just have to kind of know where the face meshing will have a problem. So you gotta know, oh, I see that there's this weird separation here. but it continues here, so we'll probably have a problem. So let's split it here. So you just gotta think like that, and with more experience you'll probably get more used to it and you'll automatically see these problems. So that's it for this video, and thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.